Okay, so have you ever, like, really looked at your life and just, like, fixated on what's missing?
Hmm.
Like, instead of being happy with what you got, you're stressing about that empty space in your calendar or, like, how much money you didn't make last month.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like our brains are hardwired for negativity or something, right?
Well, there's a reason for that,
Yeah.
and it's actually pretty interesting. It's all about this thing called negativity bias, which we're gonna dive into today with the half-empty glass.
It's a pretty funny title when you think about it.
Yeah, the author definitely has a sense of humor about it.
Right. But, like, it also makes you think, like, why are we so drawn to the negative?
Well, from a psychological perspective, it makes sense. Think about it. Our brains evolved to prioritize survival, right?
Okay.
And for a long, long time, scarcity was a real threat, like a matter of life or death.
Yeah, back in the caveman days, totally.
Exactly. So, focusing on what we lacked, what we were missing, that helped us avoid danger and seek out resources. The irony is that in today's world, that instinct, it can backfire.
So instead of a saber-toothed tiger, we're stressing about an empty inbox.
Exactly. And it becomes this vicious cycle because that dwelling on lack, it actually creates a kind of weird comfort zone.
Okay, how so?
Well, think of it this way. If you're already convinced you lack something, why even bother trying?
It's like a built-in excuse for failure almost.
Right. You're preemptively protecting yourself from disappointment.
Oh, 100%. The source talks about this feeling of, like, looking at your bank account and just being like, well, I'm never going to be rich, so why even try?
Exactly. And instead of that lighting a fire under us to make a change, we just kind of accept it as just the way it is. And that's where this gets, well, dangerous because when we constantly focus on what's missing, we're actually creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So you're saying our thoughts can actually influence our reality?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We limit our beliefs about what's possible, and that
Yeah.
directly impacts the actions we're willing to take. So if we're constantly telling ourselves, I can't, I don't have, I'm not enough, well, guess what? We're probably not going to go after those big goals and dreams.
Okay, but sometimes those limitations feel very real. Like the source talks about those classic excuses we all use. I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't know enough. How do we know when it's a legitimate roadblock versus just a convenient excuse that's, like, fueled by fear?
You've hit on a really, really important point because the line between a valid concern and a fear-based excuse,
Okay.
it can be super blurry.
So, like, how do we actually tell the difference? Is there some kind of magic question we can ask ourselves to figure out if it's a real roadblock or just like fear dressed up in a fancy excuse suit?
I love that. Fear in a fancy suit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not always easy. But one thing the source talks about is like reframing the question. So instead of asking yourself, what if I fail?
Ouch.
Try flipping it around and asking, what if I succeed?
Ooh, I like that. It's like changing the narrative in your head, right? Instead
Yeah.
of focusing on the negative, you're like picturing the win.
Exactly. And this actually connects to another big idea from the source. Action usually comes before motivation.
Hmm. Interesting.
We tend to wait around for that perfect moment, or for some like burst of inspiration to hit us. But honestly, a lot of times the best way to get motivated is to just start doing.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it. I am the queen of procrastination, always waiting for, like, the stars to align or something. But it's so true what you're saying. Like, it's usually when I just force myself to take that first step, even if it's messy and I have no idea what I'm doing, that's when the inspiration actually kicks in.
Exactly. It's like that saying, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's always going to be a little scary taking that first step, but once you do, it's like the momentum just starts to build.
Speaking of momentum, the source also gets into this whole thing about a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset, which feels super relevant to what we're talking about here. Can you break those down a bit?
Absolutely. So, a scarcity mindset, it's basically this belief that there's just not enough to go around, not enough money, not enough opportunities, not enough success, you name it.
It's like this constant feeling of lack.
Right. And it keeps us feeling, well, insecure, competitive, and like we were saying before, afraid to take risks.
So it's almost like you're trapping yourself in this box of negativity, always looking over your shoulder, convinced someone's going to swoop in and take whatever little bit you might have.
Ugh, yeah. It can be really, really exhausting. And ultimately, it's self-sabotaging. Now, on the flip side, you have an abundance mindset. And that's the belief that there's actually plenty to go around for everyone.
Okay, so it's not about pretending that challenges don't exist or that life is always going to be rainbows and butterflies, but it's more about shifting your focus.
Yes, exactly. It's about Choosing to see the possibilities instead of getting hung up on the limitations.
And believing that you have the power to create the life you want.
Exactly. Even if you don't have all the answers right this second, it's about retraining your brain to focus on the good no matter how small. That's the power of an abundance mindset.
It's like we're finally taking off those old kind of crappy glasses.
Yeah. The ones that make everything look worse than it is.
Exactly. And switching to ones that actually let us see all the good stuff.
Precisely. And the source makes a really interesting point about this. They say a huge part of shifting our mindset is just becoming aware of how we talk to ourselves.
Oh, you mean like that inner critic?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, how often are we dwelling on what's wrong, what we lack, what we're afraid of? All that negativity, it can be seriously limiting.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
We can be our own worst enemies sometimes, for sure. So how do we actually change that inner dialogue? Where do we even begin?
It all starts with just paying attention. Notice those thoughts without judgment. And then when you catch yourself slipping into that lack mindset, see if you can reframe it.
Okay, give me an example.
So let's say you're all stressed about money, right? Instead of, I don't have enough money, try, I'm attracting more abundance into my life.
Ooh, I like that. It's like choosing to focus on the possibility, even if you don't see it yet.
Exactly. But I get it. It's not always that easy. Like, what about when those negative thoughts just feel super loud and persistent? What if it's like a deeply ingrained scarcity mindset that feels almost impossible to shake?
Right, because our brains can be pretty stubborn sometimes.
Totally. But there's something really powerful you can try. Gratitude. When we make an effort to focus on what we're already grateful for, it shifts our energy. It helps us appreciate the abundance that's already present in our lives.
Okay, so it's like giving our brains a big dose of positivity, for sure. But it's not just tea about thinking positive thoughts, right? The source also talks about the importance of action.
100%. Honestly, one of the best ways to ditch that scarcity mindset is to just start taking action, even if it's just baby steps at first.
So instead of waiting till you feel like 100% ready and you've got it all figured out, sometimes you just got to dive in.
Exactly. Because action creates momentum, and then that momentum creates results. And when we start seeing progress, even small wins, it just reinforces our belief in ourselves.
It's like a snowball effect.
Exactly. It becomes this amazing upward spiral.
Okay, I am loving this.
Yeah.
So we're ditching the excuses, reframing our thoughts, practicing gratitude, and taking action. Sounds like a recipe for a whole lot of awesome.
It really is. And the best part, it's a practice, like building a muscle. The more we consciously choose to focus on abundance, the easier it gets.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm walking away feeling super inspired and ready to actually do something.
Me too. And it all starts with that awareness, that willingness to shift your perspective.
And for you listening, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you today? What's one thing you're going to do differently to start filling your own glass? Share your thoughts with us on social media. We want to keep this conversation going. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those glasses full.